Welcome to the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships forged. I'm Rebecca Monet, CEO and Chief Scientist at Zorkel Profiles, along with my co-host, community advocate, speaker, author, and entrepreneur, Tracy Kawa. Our special guest today is Pace Webb. Pace Webb is the co-founder of Daddy's Chicken Shack. She's a classically trained chef who quickly made her dream of feeding people a reality once she received a rave celebrity review on her signature chicken sandwich. The review sparked the idea for Daddy's, and since then, Pace has been committed to making a name for herself in the cluttered chicken space. Daddy's first restaurant opened in 2018, thanks to Pace's Asian-inspired menu offerings and her husband Chris's technology-driven efforts. Together, they grew Daddy's chicken sales over 200% during the pandemic. Daddy's recently launched her franchising efforts after piquing the interest of Dave Liniger, co-founder of Remax, who is an investor. Now, Daddy's second location is about to open in Houston, Texas. Welcome, Pace. We're so glad you could spend some time with us today.
Oh, that was such an exciting introduction. Thank you. Like, yes, that is all true and going on.
That was exciting. That was exciting. You seem to have this really incredible background and all of these amazing stories. I'd love to hear more about how Daddy's Chicken Shack was created, how it evolved.
Is it the chicken or is it the egg? So I come from a long line of ladies who love to entertain. So that means growing up just always in the environment of music and parties and lighting and food, although food wasn't a primary focus. And so I had this moment at an opening night party. My mom is a wonderful actress. And I saw people connecting and I saw them with just a little bit of their drink left. And I had this moment going, I want to be on the curating side of the party so the connections don't ever have to stop. And at that time, as a 14-year-old, you don't know that there's an art to entertaining. And so that's really, fast forward, had this vision at that moment. And I didn't know that, 10 years down the road, I would be in Los Angeles learning how to cook food and have a catering business where I was doing that exact same thing that I thought I should be doing when I was 14 years old. You look back, you go, oh, I put that there then a long time ago and sort of made it happen. So had this catering business very organically. People are asking me, can you cater this? Can you do this? And it just turned into this thing. And we got to do all kinds of incredible events in Los Angeles. And one client asked me to do tacos and sliders. And at the time, I was really focused on more fine dining. So regional Italian food by way of California, really celebrating all the fabulous produce here. But I thought, yeah, I can definitely do a tacos and sliders party and I'll put my spin on it. And I made these fried chicken sliders. And the first person to walk in the party was Mandy Moore. And I thought, okay, well, this is a celebrity party. And people were literally, it was an open floor plan kitchen, just grabbing the sandwiches before I could put them on a tray to pass. They're just going bananas for these fried chicken sliders. And so Mandy Moore and I were tweeting and the next day, and it was like, Daddy's is so good. Or like, there wasn't a name for it, right? So these fried chicken sliders are so amazing. Yeah, back and forth. I called my dad the next day because I love to call my parents. And I'm like, you're not going to believe what happened last night. Crazy LA stories. So I'm like, Dad, maybe this is what I should be doing, is just focus on fried chicken sliders. They're so good. This fine dining stuff is just so crazy hard for so many reasons. And I said, it could be a retirement plan. We'll just put you in a little shack on the pier out here in, Venice, California, wear a Hawaiian shirt, flirt with all the ladies. And I said, we'll call it Daddy's. And he just belly laughed so loud, like dads have this best belly laugh. And I thought, oh, Daddy's Chicken Shack, that has such a good ring to it. Mm-hmm. So I got really inspired in that moment. That was a light bulb moment for me. And I started looking into, well, okay, let's make it happen. And getting with a colleague, looking at it, what a business plan, a financial model would look like, the money you need to raise to do it, all that good stuff. And I kind of thought, I cannot do this by myself, especially right now, because I'm still really gratefully and passionately devoting most of my time my catering business. It's
Mhm.
a labor of love. And so, we continued to put the fried chicken sandwich on our catering menu, and it was ordered very, very, very frequently. And we tweaked it and we played with it. We thought, oh, no, this is really, really good. But not everybody likes that. Da, 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 da. But I had put the sort of plan to open a brick and mortar on a shelf, even though I was still very much breathing life into the product itself.
Mhm.
And so that is, probably, I don't know, there's maybe 5+ years. And then I meet my now husband and business partner, and he has a bite of the sandwich. And I tell him about this idea for Daddy's. My dad had made the logo, and he goes, "That's your Shake Shack. You have your 11 Madison Park, but this is how you're really going to share your love of cooking people tasty food with a lot more than the 1 to 5% that you're currently servicing. Plus, it's going to be a better quality of life for us if we have a business that's scalable, as opposed to you physically needing to be there day in, day out to oversee the operation."
Wow, what an incredible story. Just basically providing this opportunity to have people come together, through food, and inventing this fried chicken sandwich, a slider that was a hit from the minute these celebrities saw it and tasted it. But I want to address something that I find interesting is you kind of knew after it was tweeted out that this was big, that this was something, but it took a few years before it came about, kind of this gap where you put things on the shelf and then it came through. So no doubt life is about timing. So my question is, what were you doing during that time in your brain and else, otherwise? And then how did you know when it was the right time to move forward and put Daddy's Chicken Shack to action?
Yeah, I mean, I think practically I had that moment where I started to see the business plan and what needed to happen in order to make it happen. At that moment, I thought, I need a partner. And then that's the moment that I decided to sort of put it on a shelf and not actively, it felt like swimming upstream a little bit to be like, go find the partner. Da, 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 da. I need it to happen a little bit. I'm very much a go-getter, an action-oriented person. I needed to happen a little more organically than that. And I was so busy with my catering business, and I was happy doing that. So that sort of sense of urgency, I think, is a very important component a lot in the entrepreneurial decisions that we make. And oftentimes I'm very grateful for that sense of urgency, right? Where you perhaps something really changes and you're like, oh, I got to figure out how to survive, right? Or something gets flipped on its back and that just propels you into this next idea that's been perhaps this ho-hum sort of low priority idea. So I think when we came together, both my husband and I had the need, and the need put together was very strong to have Daddy's become, take on a life of its own. And my husband is very, very smart. We're very different in the way we think, very entrepreneurial. And he was ready, really, really ready. He was sort of looking at the music industry and how that was really changing and upside down, and really going for a career there. He'd been in finance and looking to transition. And he's had, a couple of other entrepreneurial endeavors that he really enjoyed, but thought after a while, is this really where I want to go? And this is how I want to spend my time. So his need was growing stronger to go on to his next entrepreneurial endeavor. And then when we met, he tasted like I said, he tasted the sandwich. He's like, this is something. And I said, well, like, I need your help. I really can't do this. And I don't want to do this by myself. And he's not in food. So it didn't really, we started sort of cooking up those ideas. It was probably on our third date, even that early, but it wasn't until, let's see, that would have been 2015, 2018, 2017. We do this pop-up at this big barbecue place. We do like 400 sandwiches. We build this beautiful facade. We survived a 4-hour trip to Home Depot together. That's when I thought, oh, we might make it. Not wanting to ask for directions. One being like, you don't know these answers. So we're gonna get some directions here on where this lumber is and what we need for X, Y, and Z. screaming success. And then he's like, well, let's do smorgasbord. I'll do it with you every Sunday, and we'll grind it out together. And so we're kind of getting our toes wet here on the birthing of this idea is becoming its own thing, but it's building, right? So we started this food festival called Smorgasburg every Sunday together on top of his 9-to-5, on top of my catering business. And the battle that is to really make it happen and learn. And we go, oh, that's really nice. So he's got the taste now, and I've got the taste now that something's working. Then he starts to look for real estate spaces, and I'd be like, okay, sure. That's going to take a while. We decided the end of 2017, we need to level things up a little bit here in life. We need to get you on a career path that you're just super, super aligned with and really happy with, and we need to start a family. So that's what we're going to do. And that is what we did. 2018, he found a space, like third space. That doesn't happen, by the way. So his intentions are just when he sets his mind to something, it just happens. I say, be careful what you say, because it just freakishly happens. You find this space, move in there. I'm 8 months pregnant with our first child. He's still got his 9-to-5. That was absolutely one of the crazier things that, I've done or that we've done together. And we opened and then had a child 30 days later and had it to kind of get it all up and running. So it was just kind of, by the time it got a life of its own, it was like, oh my God, we're going. It was unstoppable. And so our business is going, and, this is end of 2018. So we had 2019, we're growing at a really nice rate. Pandemic happens early 2020, and we grow like overnight. The amount of growth is completely overwhelming, but I call it a champagne problem, not a Miller Lite problem. Yeah. I do really enjoy Miller Lite with the right dishes, but I prefer a champagne problem. And so that's when really the business started to go, because he was also had the foresight to say, we're going to be everywhere that people want to access. You want to walk up, you don't have a cell phone, no problem, we got you. You want to sit at home and have a third party bring your food, no problem, we got you. You want to come pick up the food because you don't want to pay the delivery fees, that's great, place your order, come on. So really making it to where he's starting to really pay attention to how consumers are consuming. And that's the reason why we had success, is because I had somebody who didn't have the old school, no, they need to come to the restaurant and sit down and have the food here, right? So we started modifying the food to travel very well, the packaging. I mean, the amount of detail that goes into making something like this really, really good and really, really work is absolutely tremendous. And so that sort of has why we got where we are. It's not because of the pandemic. We haven't slowed down. It's because the consumer behavior was sped up by 3 to 5 years, right? And that's when we started to attract investor attention. And we were looking for an investor who could help us scale, because we have operator experience. We don't have franchise experience or corporate growth experience. And that's why we decided to align with Dave Liniger. Plus, there was just a really strong personal connection there that I think is so important to have. It's not just about who can write the biggest check for us. It was like, who's really going to help us do this thing and be our partners? And he happens to be able to do both. So it really works out well.
Wow.
That's incredible. I'm sitting on the edge of my seat, hearing this whole organic process, right? Everything started out so organically. Yeah, this great chicken sandwich. Let's just go put up a tent and sell some on a weekend. We're both working full time. And then it just, like you said, takes on a life of its own, but so organically. And just the competencies, the complementary strands that the two of you have, you and Chris, is just fascinating for me. The one thing that was going through my mind the whole time, because I was thinking, she's such a go-getter, a driver, a pioneer, this big picture person, or this detail person, but she seems to be able to toggle between both. And how difficult was it for you to give up control in certain areas? Like when I say control, obviously we're not talking quality, we're talking like, for you, you were used to running your own business, right? Your own catering business, doing everything. Like even Chris said, like you couldn't scale because it was all pace. take peace out of the business is gone. So what is it like to now have partners and people who believe in you and to be able to just hand over the reins? Was that easy for you?
So I had been practicing. There were small points in my business where I thought I can't keep working 7 days a week, 24/7 for much longer. So you have that first employee that you hire. It's like, okay, well, there's an assistant. You're just part-time and I just need you these many hours. And you're like, so scared to spend the money, right? Then you do it. You're like, oh my gosh, how did I ever do it without you? Do you want to come on board full-time? We can totally do full-time, and then you build your team from there. So I had practice in building a team because I couldn't continue on. I would implode if I just kept doing everything myself. So I did have really good experience in delegation, but even then, events are events. And I want to be there to oversee the Sunday event, the Saturday event, the this, and the prep in the kitchen, and all the business stuff on the back end behind it. So it does take, for a small business, that makes it 24/7. So I knew early on, though, that putting systems in place and delegating was the key, one of my major keys to success, and also personal happiness, which is, I think, a huge factor in your long-term professional success.
It is. You're young, and yet you understood this. Do you think these leadership skills, because there's a difference between being a leader and being a manager, right? And that's kind of what you're describing here, is you're the visionary. You made sure you built a good team. You delegated and you let certain parts of the business be run by other folks that were competent and capable. So you didn't have to micromanage, but you knew the things would get done. So this leadership part of you, did you have models, role models? Do you think it's innate? Did you read books? How did you learn these leadership skills?
I think it's innate, and I've always sort of naturally been a leader, and I step into the leadership role. It's not control, because there are definitely plenty of things, especially in my personal life, that I kind of don't want to control, and I like to take a back seat to. But there are mostly I want to sort of create my whole life, and really actively create it, as opposed to just sort of standing back and seeing what happens to my life. So I'm very much in the driver's seat that way, and have always felt that way. But I think it's always, it's an innate quality, but also having those lessons early on is that you have to lead. You can't just constantly be actively doing in your business if you want to really grow your business and make a good impact. And even though my catering business never got to this big scaled thing, it certainly could, but it allowed the business to run better if I led a certain way. It doesn't mean that I wouldn't, roll up my sleeves and be in there with people, but that I had other folks doing things they were really good at, made the business better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Indeed. So you're really a goal-oriented person. And you like to be in the driver's seat, but you also are comfortable with things happening organically, that they kind of happen. So it's not like you're a driver that says it must be this way. How do you reconcile that? I must be in the driver's seat. I must be in control of my life. I'm a visionary, but also comfortable with the unknown and having things kind of come together.
Yeah. So I always have, and have had, I think, like I described earlier, when I was 14 and had that moment, that light bulb moment at a party at our house, where I wanted to be on the curating side of the party because I wanted the connection to continue regardless of whether they they needed a full drink, to not be like, oh, I want to hold on just a minute, I want to go grab another beer or something, So having those light bulb moments is really a driver. And sometimes you don't necessarily know that those light bulb moments are going to make these huge impacts on your life. But I'm very much I have these visions, I guess, of an outcome, and they sort of stay over here in the subconscious. I see the scene, but then I'm not really sure how I'm going to get there. And then something starts to happen because I'm sort of driving unknown almost towards that picture. And then I go, oh my gosh, I had this vision 10 years ago, 12 years ago, and here we are going for it.
Wow.
And it's just totally mind blowing. So if there was to be kind of a theme to my life, it would just be relaxed enough to kind of identify the things that you want for your life, whether they're personal or professional, and be in that relaxed state. And then you sort of keep, I guess the best way to put it is like following your nose.
Yeah.
And you get to those places and you almost didn't know that that's where you're going until you're 3/4 away there. You're like, oh my gosh, this is where we're going. Yeah. And then I'm really good at sort of, I have the what is not hard for me. And I feel very lucky for that, because I think the what is the hardest part for most. It's not the how, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have the what. I'm going to tell, this is the vision. This is what I really want. No idea how to get there, but I figure that part out. That's easier to figure out. And then as soon as I have the what, I just get down on the how, and I get my spreadsheets out. We get the team together. We got our meetings, and I love bringing something to life. And I think that years of being a chef and having to say, this dish must hit the table at this time, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You know what I mean? And it must be hot, and it must taste this way. And, there's all these requirements that have to take place that have to do with time. And that has helped me. I call myself a recovering chef now. So I'm a CEO now, and the tools are very, very similar, right? Yeah.
It's still a recipe, right? A recipe for success, a recipe for, a chicken slider. It's still a recipe for life. Yep, that somehow you've mastered and trusted the process at the same time.
Yeah.
Tracy, I wanted to use the word intuition that Pace has, but it seems like it's more than intuition, and even more than an epiphany.
That would be. Yeah.
Right.
One step further, it's actually a knowing. It's actually a calling or a knowing.
That's it. A purpose almost, or a calling. Yeah, I hadn't thought of it. That's probably what it is.
And a purpose.
It's like a magnet. Once you know the thing, then it's just undeniably you get the how comes, and you figure it out, and it manifests.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The first time I realized about a knowing was when my son was born. Mm-hmm. Nobody had to tell me that he was my son, even though he was a brand new creature in the world. Mm-hmm. Like somebody says to you, you get a new puppy, this is your puppy. But when something comes out of your body, right? Another human being, like nobody had to tell me, like, this is my son, right? That's the knowing. But we have those knowings about other things in our life, right? It's even more driven. Like a purpose is, what I think my purpose is, but a knowing is like this deep rooted spiritual, it's right there with the calling.
It's magnetic. I love the word magnetic, because then Pace attracts to her those things, money, investors, her husband, who's brilliant, in technology and understanding consumer mind. It's attracting, it's magnetic. That's what it is. I'm sorry, we got excited there, Pace.
That law of attraction. It's that law of attraction, right? She put it in the universe, but she didn't give it a deadline, right? You didn't give it a deadline. You didn't give it a timeline. You just said, I'm putting this in the universe. I know what I enjoy seeing from people. I know what I would enjoy doing to help foster their connections. I love that. And that was when you were 14. Mm-hmm. And then here years later.
Oh my goodness.
And your actions, it's not about like having a knowingness and then sitting on the couch waiting for it to come to you. Right. It sort of drives all of your actions, right? It doesn't mean that you're just like, oh, end result, outcome, control that. It's just that all of your decisions and actions are based on that goal.
That goal, that knowingness of what you're called to do, or however you want to put that. It's fascinating. So you've pulled this wonderful team together, knowledgeable team that kind of complements everything that you are doing, and this original knowingness that you had. and the chickens or the ducks are starting to line up as you're starting to build this franchise system. Can you talk to us a little bit about the future of Daddy's Chicken Shack and what you are seeing in the future, what you would hope to accomplish or have happen as part of feeding people?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for asking that question. I think it's a really important question. It's like, here's how we got here, and here's where I would like us to go. So if I could have a superhero power, right, it would be the redistribution of underutilized resources.
Mm.
And so I look at people and food as the two main ones that I could control an outcome with our business, right? Because that's the two biggest things that we have. You have to have people there to make the food and serve the food, and you have to source and buy the food. And so where we start today isn't where I see us finishing, and it's never that way. But I'm always very interested in best practices for food and sourcing food. I'm particularly interested in what's called seconds in our industry, and that is otherwise known as imperfect foods. So let's say, and these are, traded on you can get them at home through the company Imperfect Foods in a CSA box. But I'm talking about buying 1,500 pounds at a time of Napa cabbage that's considered a second because it's not good enough to sell to restaurants typically or to grocery stores because of cosmetic or size spec reasons.
Mm.
So that there are things where we, shred our Napa cabbage or shred our carrots where those cosmetic issues, it's the same product, it's just a cosmetic issue that wouldn't apply to us. So I'd really like us to become involved in those types of transactions where we are solving a problem of using underutilized resources. I mean, plus the business side of me is like, you get such a price reduction and you get a better quality. So we might be buying something that is commodity for the same price as an organic seconds. And so it's that kind of thought process that I'm applying to it, but mostly because I'm just super passionate about it. Like anytime I see something wasted, I want it to just grab it. Wait, how can we do this? Wait, how can we do this? And then the same sort of applies for people. And I respect Chef Jose Andres and his work at World Central Kitchen, and Robert Egger, who started the West Coast counterpoint for that. It lasted several years. So it's not an active organization, but it is basically putting folks to work who need a second chance, whether they're coming out of the foster, system at 18 or whether they're coming out of incarceration and looking to really change the trajectory of their life. And so we've had a lot of success employing those individuals, and maybe it's a career path for them and maybe it's not, and that's okay. I think I really gain a lot of pleasure seeing my staff win, whether it's somebody at the executive level or if it's somebody at the entry level just coming in. So it's really important. Chris has a big sports and mentorship background. So we want to see folks come to our program for whether maybe they stay for 3 months and food service isn't for them and they get a better opportunity somewhere else, but we still want them to learn these super valuable lessons they can apply elsewhere to Daddy. So inclusivity, integrity, honesty, hard work, almost kind of like the military, except you're frying chicken and it's a little more fun, maybe, not as serious. So while we can't dictate to our franchisees as a franchisor who they should hire and how they should manage, we will be able to pilot those same programs in our corporate location to just simply share our experiences of how it's working for us. So far it's been good, and I'd like to continue on that path.
Beautiful. That's really beautiful. You're just so driven by the impact that Daddy's Chicken Shack can make on society. It's really beautiful.
Yes. Got my work cut out for me here. Make it all happen.
You do, but it's nice to see that this seedling of a vision that started at 14, that in your 20s continued to grow, even when it seemed like it was just on the shelf, has now turned into 2 locations and soon a franchise chain. And then the lives that will impact. And of course, never mind the food and the planet and all of those kinds of things. So the vision keeps expanding, makes me almost wonder sometimes if sometimes we're only capable of seeing a vision this size, because if we really knew how powerful we were, it could be overwhelming. It could be kind of scary. I mean, if you had a vision at 14 that you were going to run a franchise organization of 500, franchisees, it probably would be overwhelming. But you got that you wanted to entertain, you wanted to provide lovely food, you wanted to bring people together, which took it to the next. So it's just fabulous. So our last question for you today, you're young, you're a millennial, is that correct?
Right on the cusp. I actually just turned 40 last week.
So you're my daughter's age. So
Okay.
You are right on the cusp, yes. What advice would you give those, late Xers and millennials and Zers as they're pondering entrepreneurship, they're pondering expressing themselves through some kind of way of building a business? What advice would you give a young person, especially a woman?
Yeah, specifically pondering entrepreneurship. I think that you just have to be really resilient and really tough. So I have a very competitive athlete mentality, and my husband is a Division I athlete. And so we share those qualities, but I was not a Division I athlete. So I would say if there's a way for you to simulate an experience that is perhaps serving some time in the military, or putting, whatever that means for you, maybe it's a boot camp for a year that's a fitness thing, or something where it's so hard that anything will feel easy after that, and a way to condition your mind. And even I've done things that condition my body in a certain way to push the physical limits at the same time as the mental limits, to just know that to persevere, there will be those moments, even for the most tough of us, that you want to give up. Specifically entrepreneurship, not just being an executive hired by someone else. This is your own business. And so whatever it is, whether it's faith-based, it's physical strength-based, or just mental toughness, to make sure that you have what it takes to get up and keep going, because that is just simply what is required of entrepreneurship. It's not all the time. There are just periods of time like that will determine, your persistence will determine if you are successful or not. That is, I think, a huge determining factor. And I also say that naivete is also 50% of it. So don't research too much about it. Just go out there and be a badass, and then just make yourself sort of go for it. And you're just going to figure it out on the way. And it's either going to be for you or not for you. And it's totally okay if it's not for you, but you owe it to yourself, if you're that interested, to go jump off the cliff.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Whoa. Beautiful.
It is beautiful. What great advice for all of us. Find something tough, make yourself do it, stick with it. Yeah. Oh my goodness, that's just brilliant. Whatever it is, run a marathon, but find that mental toughness and just jump off the cliff, do it. Yeah. Tracy, any final comments? And before we get to your final comments, Tracy, Pace, how do folks learn more about Daddy's Chicken Shack if they're interested in becoming a franchisee or want to learn more about you and Chris and your team? How would we learn more?
Yeah, daddysfranchising.com. And there's a form you can fill out there and all the contact information.
Thank you. And Tracy, your final thoughts as we wrap up this interview?
I would have to say that there are so many amazing takeaways from today's show. Thank you so much, Pace. My thought is wrapped around how it's so important to take time to innovate, to take time to think about what we want for our future, to create that path, as opposed to letting that path be determined for us. Yet, as something Pace said earlier, not to be so attached to the results, to appreciate the little surprises that come along the way.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I really, that's a great takeaway.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Pace. Maybe that's why your name is so apropos, Pace, right?
Mhm.
When you think that, that's amazing.
Keeping up the pace. Yep.
Yeah.
Pace.
Thanks again, Pace, for being with us. And for all of you listening in today, thank you for joining us on the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships are forged. We'll see you next week for another edition.